Hey, everybody. Welcome back to this week's edition of the Multifamily Investing Academy's podcast with me, your host, Charles Dobbins, founder of the Multifamily Investing Academy and the creator of the Multifamily OS system. And I am here with a guy who I've been hearing about for years, and I finally get the chance to meet him. Welcome to my podcast, Mr. Daniil Kleyman. Welcome.
Thank you.
Now, okay, so you're originally let me just kind of give everybody a background just so we can talk about it. Daniil does ground up development of small multifamily properties, which we're going to talk quite a bit about. Typically 2 to 50 units, and he also does in-house and develops in-house and manages his properties long term. He's down in the Richmond, Virginia area. The guy's been doing it since, full-time real estate investor since 2009. Like, which side were you on, Daniil? Were you on the good side of 2009 or the bad side of 2009?
I was largely on the good side. I owned some real estate during the crash, but I bought in good locations.
Good.
And we managed to come out of it pretty unscathed. So I'm not one of those cautionary tales.
Yeah. Oh, all right.
Guy that lost it all.
Well, hold on here. Don't sell yourself short here, Daniil. I mean, you came. You're not native. Let's talk about that first, because I always find that to be fascinating. You're originally from Russia,
right?
Okay. So how did you get here? Like, how old were you? How did you make the move? I'm always fascinated by immigrants.
Sure. Well, I mean, we got here in an airplane.
All right. That's not what I meant. You know what I meant,
Luckily, we were no longer in an age where we had to take a very long boat.
Yes.
Across the ocean. But we're Jews. We saw the writing on the wall I guess my parents did. I was writing on the wall while I was still young.
Okay.
My parents saw the writing on the wall back in late 80s about the fact that Soviet Union was just a not only dangerous place for Jews to remain, but the country was deeply corrupt, still is.
Yeah.
We started the process to immigrate when it was still a communist country, and we finally got the right to leave just as the wall fell. But it's not like things got better there after we left. It just became a different sort of madness that over the last 20 years there. So my parents basically saw the writing on the wall, and they saw that there were not going to be a lot of opportunities for their children if they stayed. And our entire family left. I mean, my dad's side of the family moved to Israel. Most of my mom's side of the family moved here to the States. I think there was some debate about where to immigrate to in our family. And I love Israel. I've been there 5 times, but I'm very thankful we came here and didn't go to Israel. Just the quality of life in the United States, the level of opportunities, I can talk about that for hours. Right. So we came here in 92, again, basically right as the wall fell. It was a lengthy process to get permission to come here, and we were originally supposed to go to Florida, in Jacksonville, because the agency that says yes, you can immigrate, then they tell you're going to go to this city, and we said that's wonderful, America, Jacksonville, great. My parents came home from the meeting, and they kind of looked in the map, and they went Moscow. Woo, Jacksonville.
Yeah.
Like, we're not. They realized very quickly we weren't made for that weather. So they went back and said, listen, we've got some family already in Virginia. Can we go there instead? And we end up coming here. I was 12 years old, so I went into 7th grade. We had some basic knowledge of English already. I studied English in school. My parents took lessons in anticipation of coming here, but my parents had very basic understanding of English. I was 12, so I picked it up quickly. I came in here. I went to 7th grade, and I guess the rest is history.
Wow. I had lunch just the other day with a Chinese national. I mean, he's actually a U.S. citizen now, but he grew up under the communists in China, and he says he's terrified. He's very conservative now, and he says, "I'm terrified of what's going on in this country right now, because if we lose this country to socialism, to communism, the way you're headed, I mean, I've already lived it. Says, we've got no place left to go. I mean, this is terrifying." And I was like, wow.
Everybody that lived under, everyone that lived under socialism or communism, whether you've got Venezuelans, whether you've got Cubans, whether you've got Russians, Chinese, everybody that immigrates here is probably leans conservative.
Yeah.
And thinks what's going on here is nonsense. It's only the dumbasses that have never left the United States that think because they went to college and read a book, they think some of the stuff that's going on right now is a good idea. But nobody that's actually lived it anywhere across the world that comes here like wants to go back through that. No one, right? So it's everyone. I mean, this is why you've got Cubans that are moving to Florida that are voting more right than left.
Yeah.
They lean conservative because they fled.
Yeah.
What's going on there? Same thing with Venezuelans. Yeah.
All right. So let's get to real estate. Enough of this. This is not always meant to be a political discussion, but I like talking politics. It's
all interrelated.
Yeah. It's created who you are now and what you're doing now.
Well, but I'll also tell you this: I had no interest in politics when I was younger. In college, in 20s, I had no interest. But as I have grown my portfolio, and as I've grown my family, I have become much more interested, much more concerned, and much more involved, and also at the local level, because now I care. I'm invested in my local community, and I also have 3 kids that are going to grow up in this country. So it's all connected.
Yeah. All right. So let's get to the development. I'm fascinated by the development, your business of the developing of the multifamilies. So let's start from the beginning. How do you source your land for your deals? Do you find partners? Do people bring you deals? Are you constantly looking for it? How? It's one of the biggest problems I'm having in my neck of the woods here is locating buildable lots, buildable land that still, once we price everything out, the numbers still make sense. So how do you go about that process?
So in the beginning, a lot of the lots that I was building on were sourced through direct mail, going direct to seller, tax auctions, and wholesalers. I would say over the last couple of years, that's changed. I don't really have time nor desire to do direct mail anymore. I'd love to continue picking things up from wholesalers, but we're not seeing much deal flow from wholesalers lately, especially when it comes to land. And tax sales over the last few years have gotten oversubscribed. It used to be you'd be able to walk into a tax auction and especially on land you could bid, and sometimes you'd be the only bidder, but that's changed over the last couple of years. Almost everything I'm developing now has come from my network. It's come from my relationships. It's come from people bringing me deals. It's come from people that I know making referrals to sellers. A lot of the deals I'm doing, we are creating inventory. I'm not buying something that's in the market. We're taking somebody's piece of property, taking excess land that they're not using, and we're doing a deal with them where we're carving off that land. Oftentimes we're upzoning that land or getting some kind of a variance. And that's one of the things I love about development. You can create deals out of thin air. And so a lot of the things I'm developing now, we just made stuff up.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about the zoning component of it.
Sure.
Do you have set requirements with what you want the zoning to be before you're even interested in the land? Or do you think, I know this community, I know the Board of Aldermen, I know the guy in the zoning thing, I'll be able to, put in a variance and get it approved.
So anytime you can do something by right, you can build something. I mean, I'm not sure if all your listeners kind of understand the concept, but by right just means.
But why don't you explain by right? Because that's obviously a legal term and that we all understand. But
yeah,
explain what it means to you.
So developing by right just means you can pick up a piece of land and, given the current zoning, without needing any additional variances, upzoning, rezoning, special use permits, provisional use permits, just by the current zoning, you can build what you want to build.
By right.
By right. I can just pick up a piece of land and I can go directly to permit. And that is important if you're able to do that, because it speeds up your development process. It takes long enough to build something, especially if you're building commercial like what we do right now. But if you have to spend a year prior to putting shovels in the ground going through a rezoning, that obviously increases your holding costs and increases your soft costs. So if we can develop something by right, that's preferable. But in the market where you have two factors: one, just a lot of competition for land, and as almost a byproduct of that, high prices of land. In order to do deals, sometimes you need to be creative, meaning you go after things that are not zoned by right, and you realize the value of the land by upzoning, basically. Increasing density, taking a piece of land where I can build 2 units and increasing density to where I can build 4 units. And in a great scenario, I've now paid for the land based on 2 units and I own the land. Now I can build 4 units, but oftentimes in a competitive hot market, which we're still in, we've done deals where, in order to pay the seller what they are demanding, I have to upzone it just to make that price make sense.
Yeah. Okay. So what are some of the ways that you can successfully increase the density? I mean, obviously you've got some of these things like, workforce housing, they give you my town gives you, I think, a 12 or 20% increase in density if you agree to certain terms for workforce housing. But what are some of the other ways you can increase the density?
So it's different in every county, and there are going to be some things which they're simply not going to allow. I mean, if you're going into a residential neighborhood where it's all single family homes, it's highly unlikely that you're going to be able to come in there and take a single family lot and say, I want to build even a duplex here, or I want to build a 4-unit building, I want to build a 10-unit building. A lot of what we do is infill development in urban neighborhoods, downtown Richmond. And in these neighborhoods, we have, in the very small proximity, a big mix of zoning codes. So I may, within a 10-block radius, have a low density zoning area, medium density, and a high density zoning area. So it's much easier for us, because we have blocks typically where there might be a duplex, there might be a single family. This is how old neighborhoods used to be developed. You used to have neighborhoods where you had a mix of housing types in that neighborhood. You had corner commercial, you had duplexes, you had live workplaces where people lived upstairs, worked downstairs, opened up a shop. So it's easier to be creative in this type of environment where I can take something that's maybe zoned for one house and I can apply for a special use permit and be able to build a 4-unit building there because it already exists on the block or it exists on the next block. And density here makes sense. So it has to still, whatever you do, fit into the neighborhood. And there's going to be certain neighborhoods where you're really not going to be able to get creative. And there's certain neighborhoods where the planning department, local zoning board, council people, if council people are involved, local neighbors are much more open to upzoning, to adding density. And
isn't that a risk when you buy the land? Like if the powers that be say, no, we don't like this Daniil Kleyman guy. We're not going to let him increase it. You run that risk.
So on on smaller deals, if I could pick up a lot for, 10, 20, 30 grand, I can take that risk right away. Like I can just buy it, and worst that happens, I'm going to build a single family house there. Larger deals, we put them under contract subject to a successful rezoning. So
Okay.
the only thing I'm risking is, I'm going to put some money into paying an architect to draw up some plans, paying a surveyor to put together a site plan. We use zoning consultants to essentially expedite the rezoning process and to have a lot of meetings on our behalf. So that's typically what I'm risking. And we've done countless deals where we go to the seller and we say, listen, Mr. Seller, I can give you the price that you want. What you're asking for is way more than what your property is worth. But if you give me a 9 or 12-month contract subject to a successful rezoning, I can give you the price that you're looking for. Or, I can give you 90% of it or whatever. And yeah, we've done countless deals. I'm closing on a little piece of land here in 2 weeks where we had a 12-month contract on it. And it's a small project. It's a single family house, but it's on a huge lot. It's a 60-foot wide lot. And we're giving the seller quite a bit more than what the house itself is worth, but it's subject to me being able to split it into 3 separate lots.
Yeah.
And we got a 12-month contract. We're going to end up closing, I think, in 8, which is going to make everybody happy. But all I risked in that deal was probably $3-4 grand.
Right. And that money, just so everybody understands, because you kind of glossed over it more earlier, zoning consultants, so basically what you need, let's pretend, this is like one of you're early on in your career. You find this deal where you've got a single family house on a double lot or, a triple lot or something like that. And you think, okay, this is great. I can split this and I can, and make it happen. Walk me through your offering process to the owner, where you build in the contingencies that will make you feel comfortable with moving forward with the deal.
Well, so, I'll take you back even a step further. The very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the zoning. And because if it's a double lot, I may be able to split that by right.
Right. Okay.
Maybe I can show that it used to be 2 lots. Then it got combined into 1, and I can literally buy this and then record a new survey that splits that lot in half.
Yeah.
So that's the very first thing I'm going to check. But assuming that I cannot do that by right, assuming that I have to apply for some kind of a variance, special use permit. Again, I'm hesitant to give specific terms because every county you go to, it's called something else. And
exactly
the mechanisms that are allowed in one county or maybe different next county over. Some of them don't exist. Some of them exist, but they're called something a little bit different.
And not only that, Dale, but in my jurisdiction here, we don't go to the county. It's done on a city and town basis. So I say county because that's what most people understand. We are in Richmond City, and so I go to the city. So I say county for the benefit of everybody listening, but I don't deal with county. I deal with the city. Right. But what I'm going to do with the seller is I'm going to come to them and I'm going to say, what you're asking. Now, obviously, it has to be an environment where the seller is not getting other offers that are willing to close quickly. I just missed out on a deal yesterday where I did the same thing. I'm like, I'll give you your asking price. Something hit the MLS. Agent sent it to me within 30 minutes of it hitting MLS. I said, I'm going to give you your asking price, but I need 12 months. And they came back and they're like, no. No, thanks, because we're already getting other offers. So obviously there's going to be scenarios where you cannot do that. But if the seller is truly not getting other offers or not getting what they're asking, we will go to the seller, or if it's an off-market situation, we will go to the seller and we'll say, look, this is what your property is currently worth at most. And you can show them proof. Some sellers are not sophisticated. You can show them comps. They won't
it depends on who you're dealing with. If you're dealing with a sophisticated seller, being able to show them comps and the true reasoning for your valuation may be helpful. But if you're dealing with kind of a mom and pop, somebody that inherited the property, it's not always useful. But I'm going to come and I'm going to say, you're not going to get your full asking price. I'm not going to give it to you. You're welcome to list it. You're going to get a bunch of tire kickers. They're going to waste your time, and then they're all going to lowball you. But I have a way to get you exactly what you're asking for. You're going to get your full asking, and you're going to get paid more than what this property is currently worth. But I need a 12-month contract in order for me to rezone it. And I'm 100% upfront with the seller exactly what we're doing. Because also when you apply for that rezoning, or again, whatever it's called, you're going to need the seller to sign it. Like, you can't just go and rezone stuff, other people's properties, without their sign off. Right?
Exactly. You have to have an interest in the land to go off and do this.
Even then, even if I have a valid contract, I'm going to need to get the seller to sign our application.
Yeah.
So we're always 100% upfront with the seller is exactly what we're doing.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell the seller, look, the only way for me to give you the money that you want is to be able to split the slot into 2 or into 3. Because it's not worth what you're asking right now. And 50% of the time, they tell you to go kick rocks.
Yeah. Yeah.
50% of the
like
time.
anything else.
Yeah.
Just like anything else. All right. So once you get it figured out, you got it under contract, you get it. Now the next step is taking it to that site engineer. And do you come to the site engineer with a, like, this is what I want to do? Or do you come to the site engineer and say, take a look at this, come up with the highest and best use for this lot?
The people that I work with are capable of doing that exercise and coming up with the highest and best use, but typically I have a fairly coherent vision of what I want on this lot and how I want it split. So I will typically go directly to my architect, because the architect is capable of taking a survey and splitting it. Eventually we'll need a real site plan from a surveyor, but for the purposes of what we're submitting to the city, my architect is capable of taking a survey, running some lines down that survey to split it into 2, 3. We just did one where we split a lot into 12. I'm currently developing it. But I came to my architect already with a piece of paper, and I split it exactly into 12 how I want it. And I said, attached townhomes should go here. I want duplexes here, facing the other way. I want some single family homes. So I had that vision, but if you're working with a good team, they should be able to do that exercise for you as well. But I will typically go to my architect and I will say, split this into X number of lots, and then draw up some basic floor plans here and some elevations to show what we can fit here. And then when we submit this to the city, they need to be able to see. They don't need permit ready drawings. They need something that shows them what the elevations will look like, and they will need to see massing on the site plan. Here's a site plan. Here's 3 lots. Here's the footprint of each house. Here's the parking. Here's the trash, HVAC units, something much more basic than when we go to apply for building permits. And that's usually enough for us. I don't even need to get a surveyor involved or a site engineer or a civil engineer at that stage.
Okay.
We only get them involved once we typically have approvals, and I can justify paying those fees.
Okay. All right. Now let's talk about the design of the property, design of the buildings. Does that architect pretty much already have a stock design that he's going to? Do you have a stock design that you want done, or do you have to keep, every time you do this, you're paying the architect for a whole new design?
Yeah, I'm still paying the architect well, even if they're reusing something similar to what we've already done, right? Okay. I mean, the architect doesn't work for free. So even if he's taking a design or a floor plan that we've already done, he still has to adapt it to the current sites, the constraints of the site. But what we design depends on a couple of things. One, a lot of what I do is in a historical neighborhood. So what we propose typically has a higher likelihood of getting approved if it fits into the neighborhood. But chances are we've already built something like that. Chances are we've already built something with a similar floor plate, similar aesthetic design. So oftentimes we are adapting what we've already done. There are certain situations where I go into a brand new site and I want something fresh designed. We go for a more modern building, more modern look. It really just depends on the context. It depends on the type of neighborhood that I'm building in, how conformist I have to be to the architectural styles in that neighborhood versus how creative I can get. It also depends on neighbors. Like there's certain neighborhoods where you have a lot of NIMBYism. And if it's something like just remotely adventurous, they poo-poo it. It really just depends. And that's where I think really knowing the areas where you develop, like I'm only really active in 3 neighborhoods.
Really? That's it?
3 neighborhoods. Wow. And I'm only really getting involved in neighborhood number 3 just now with a brand new project. Almost everything I've developed, and we're talking about at this point, almost, I don't mind saying in this podcast, like about a $50 million portfolio.
Okay.
It's in 1 neighborhood. Now I'm developing I've got multiple projects going on in the 2nd neighborhood, and we're getting involved in the 3rd neighborhood.
All right. So are we talking about the type of neighborhood where the only way you're able to do anything is you got to go in there and tear something down? Is it already a well-developed neighborhood, or is it, a lot of raw land that's still available in that neighborhood?
I wouldn't call it raw. Again, what we do is largely infill development. Okay. So if it's a vacant piece of land, then chances are sometime in the last 30, 40 years, there was something there.
Okay.
That got torn down.
So one of the other biggest concerns with development is the water and sewer and the utilities already being brought out to that land. So how much of that is an issue for you in these 3 neighborhoods?
Because it's infill development, there's usually utilities at the street. And then there are times when we find existing laterals running from the main in the street to the property itself. It's not unusual for us to dig up and find a sewer lateral already with a connection at the main coming up. Water lines are rare, obviously. We typically run new water lines from the main on the street to the property. But because it's infill development, I typically do not have to bring new utilities to the site. I simply have to bring new utilities from the main to the property. Whereas raw development is something that we don't do. Not that I wouldn't do it. I've looked at opportunities, but raw land development typically involves bringing all new utilities at the street, sometimes creating new streets, sidewalks, curb, gutter, all that stuff that massively adds to your site costs. And we don't do any of that stuff. I take pieces of land that are essentially ready for development.
Okay, so we're running out of time. We still want to talk about your calculator. But this might seem like a long question, but at the end of the day, when from the start to the end, how much of the design, how much of the construction, when the final sales price comes out, how much profit is there in it for you typically? How much is the land supposed to cost? The whole plan design. So I really want to understand that, like, how does a ground up contractor developer, what does he expect to make on a property?
So there's two answers to that question, because we have a home building division in my business where we build spec houses and we sell them. But I would say a much larger portion of my business is focused on build to rent product that I hold in my portfolio and I intend to hold for a very long time. So how we view those products obviously differs. On my spec houses, we're typically shooting for these days 20 to 22, 23% net margin based on the sales price.
Okay.
If I'm, and again, anybody that's listening, you got to take it with a grain of salt because in your market it's going to differ. But I have rules of thumb. If I'm buying a piece of land for let's say, single family house that I'm going to build and sell, I typically don't want to pay anywhere more than 20 to 22% of that resale price
For the land. Okay.
Correct. On the build to rent product, because a lot of what I develop is mixed use projects, multifamily, it's a completely different set of metrics. I am looking at my sweat equity when I finish the project, right? So rather than looking for 20 to 23% net margin, I typically want to have at least right now 12 to 15% sweat equity in the project when I'm done. Now it used to be much higher, right? But construction costs have skyrocketed. So I look at two things. I look at sweat equity in the project when I'm done with construction, and I'm looking at the first year stabilized cash and cash return, right? When I've built the project, it's leased out. In that first year, what's my net cash flow clean versus how much cash I have tied up in the deal? And that metric has taken a huge nosedive too. Used to be 10, 15, 18%. Now I'll do projects where my cash and cash return is 4 or 5%. Which, if you're smart right now, you're saying to yourself, why would you do that when you can get 5.5% in a CD or a money market?
Yeah.
Right. But these are massively long-term plays for me, because my cash and cash return is just one metric that I look at. On top of that, I'm going to have amortization of my debt. I'm going to have even at least minimal NOI growth every year, which means I'm going to have appreciation. And I'm going to take quite a bit of depreciation on this project against my active income from flipping houses and from other stuff that I'm doing. So even at a 4 or 5% cash and cash return, it makes sense for me. I was, before I got on this call with you, I was listening to your YouTube video about the Warren Buffett investing versus what you call the massive
passive investing. Yeah.
And I was laughing because you were just completely poo-pooing on syndicators.
Oh, wait, and look at the end. At the end, I kind of cover my tail by saying, listen, if you just want to park your money someplace, multifamily is an excellent investment. And that's a great thing. But I had that one guy, 17 GPs in his deal. That's just ridiculous.
That's insane. So I try to avoid that model, but also if I were syndicating right now, I just don't know how the math would work if my cash and cash is 5% and I have to promise 8-9% preferred return to my limited partners. I don't. And what you talked about in the video is correct. They make all their money on fees, acquisition fee, financing fee,
they're a broker.
developer fee, construction management fee, asset management fee, property management fee. But I would rather do smaller deals, have all the ownership. That's not to say, again, there's plenty of syndicators that make good money and they're honest, good people, and they make their investors whole. But that model also rests on your ability. The only way you achieve the right IRRs to your LPs is with a capital event as quickly as you can.
Yeah.
Which typically means selling. And everything I'm building that I'm keeping, my intent is to keep for generations.
Okay, listen, I cannot believe that you are on my show right now saying this, which is exactly what my whole point behind that video was. That you guys can go out to your rah-rah sessions and go, watch the guy from the stage, or you can build a business like Daniil did here that just you're going to hold it for a long time, for your family, for a legacy, and you will be fabulously wealthy, and you won't have to deal with the SEC and all that other crap.
I say this all the time, but to me, the true power of owning real estate kicks in about 8 to 10 years down the road. there's no when it comes to owning real estate, there's no substitute for time. There's absolutely no substitute for time. And the real power of ownership kicks in a little bit later down the road. It's not at a 3 to 5 year time frame when you have to sell it because your LPs are calling you asking when they're going to get their money back.
Yeah.
You miss out on the power of that long-term ownership.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're in the same school of thought.
Yeah, good.
And that's not to say that again, like I want to do massive projects, right? I mean, I want to do my goal. I mean, I have a lot of passion for doing mixed use development, and down the road, I want to be doing $100 million plus projects, and there's going to be no way around raising equity and syndicating.
Right.
But
you have built the infrastructure. Some of these people, finish a 3-day weekend course.
Right. Yeah, they have no money. They have no. They don't have 2 pennies to scratch together.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, just think about when you get to that level, you get to the $100 million level to do a deal. How much cash you're going to have to put of your own that you're going to have to put at risk to get to the next stage? I mean, just the pre-development expenses.
No question.
You have to put it at risk. That's why developers make the money they do, is because they put so much money at risk that nobody else does. And you can't do that if you're just starting this business last weekend.
Or like you said in your video, where like to feed his family, the guy has to close that deal or he doesn't get paid. Like that's just, it's funny that I stumbled on the video because that's the first video by you I watched. And I was like, oh, okay. This guy and I think alike, because like, that's not the guy that you want to invest with.
Oh, yeah, it's crazy. But boy, I'm so glad you raised this, because I put that out there, kind of like a little bit of a cringe. Like, am I gonna, ruffle feathers here with this video, or will people understand it and really realize that geez, that method, because it's all, as you know, this business is all about the numbers. It's all about numbers. And if you just, we created this online calculator.
Yeah.
We create, and I don't want to talk about your calculator. I think you and I had the exact same idea. If you just look at the numbers and plug it in, and we can easily figure it out based upon the basic numbers, that there's no money in that deal. That no one's going to make any money in that deal. And as soon as that happens, it's a hobby. It's nothing more than a hobby.
Right. If you're the GP, you're just going to make money off fees, but then your interests are completely misaligned with your investors. They're completely misaligned.
Yeah.
It doesn't. If you just do your own deals, and we tell this to our students and our software clients all the time. If you just buy or build 8, 10 duplexes or little 4-unit buildings, and if you do it over time, you can replace most jobs.
Yeah.
You don't need 100 units.
No.
You don't need hundreds of units.
Yeah.
Like, to live incredibly comfortably, you need 20, 30, 40 doors.
Okay. Thank you so much. Because that is typically what happens when you plug in the numbers in the calculator compared to somebody syndicating a big deal. All you need to replace your $10,000 a month income is maybe 30 to 40 units, and that's it.
Yeah, and just managed well.
Yep, you manage it, and just get out there and quit your job and become a full-time real estate investor.
Well, I would even go a step further. With 35 to 40 doors, you can there's typically enough gross revenue coming off of that portfolio where you can hire a full-time person that works for you that manages that right. Portfolio.
Exactly. Yep. And my point is that you will own and operate your own property management company.
Yes. Yes.
All of my successful clients, that's what they do.
Yeah. And that's one thing that we've refused to outsource. I have an in-house team. They just manage my assets.
Yeah.
We don't manage for other people, and we don't trust anybody else to manage our stuff.
And it's, I have fired every property management company I've ever hired, and nobody loves my baby as much as I do.
Sure.
And that one time when I turned my eye for 60 days and I came back down to the property, I could not believe what that third party property management company had done. And then when you start to do the numbers, once again, Daniel, it's all about the numbers. If I'm making $100,000 a month of revenue on a property, they're collecting 5%, they get 5,000, and we lose 20% of the population, the vacancy drops by 20%. I'm down to 80,000. I've lost 20,000. They've only lost 1,000. So how hard are they going to work to get me my 20,000 back if they're only going to gain 1,000? Not that hard at all.
There's no question. And again, look, let's cover our bases. There are good property management companies out there, but I would say for every good property management company out there, there are 4 mediocre ones or negligent ones.
Yeah, but I also think that the whole model of property management, third-party property management, doesn't work. I mean, if you have a Class A property management's easy. And that's why those companies that are successful at it, they manage Class A properties because it's not a heavy lift. You've got great tenants, you've got a great product, it runs itself. It's one of those properties that I say you forget you even own. And then you start getting down into the older properties, the B's and the C's. When you get into the C's, there isn't enough money in the property management revenue to really get yourself a good quality property management company. I mean, then you're starting to look at tougher, much more actively managed than the Class A's. And it's just, that's the point where you really can't afford to do third-party property management and get it done the right way. So,
well, you're absolutely correct. The other problem with the third-party property management model is, like, picture the last time you went to see your GP. Right, your doctor.
Yeah.
Right. You walk in there, nurse meets you, and then you sit in the room. You wait for like 15, 20 minutes. Doctor runs in, spends like 10 minutes with you, and then runs out to the next patient. Because the only way that doctor and the whole business model makes money, I read somewhere recently. No, I didn't read. I heard from a doctor that there's on average 10,000 patients per a general practitioner.
I believe it.
And so they don't have enough time to devote to you because the only way that the whole business model works with HMOs and whatever, I'm not an expert in the medical field, but they pack way too many patients.
Yeah.
And so property management, third-party management works very similar, where the only way the property management company makes money is they're going to have an employee and they're going to say, okay, how many doors can this employee, how many doors do they have to manage in order for us to be profitable, justify paying this person's salary, overhead, insurance, and then make money. And they put a huge number of doors under that person who's then overworked. In our in-house property management company, I just wanted to break even. Like, that is not a profit center for me. We take 8%, not 5, not 6. We take 8% of my gross rents, and that becomes the management fee to my property management company.
Yeah.
Which means I can hire great people.
Yeah.
I can pay them well. We have a nice office, and I don't need that property management company to make a penny.
Right.
So exactly. I don't have to put 300 doors under each person, work them to death, have them neglect properties, have them mismanage properties. I can put less units under them. They're happier. They'll stay longer. We manage better. Everybody's happy.
And the other thing is that you might think, somebody hearing what you just said might think, well, then why would you do it if you're not making any money with it? Because these people are generating the positive cash flow.
Correct.
Property.
That's exactly right.
That can be a lot more than the property management fee.
Not just that, but they're properly tackling my deferred maintenance.
Yes, exactly.
They're making sure my properties are not just maintained, but well maintained. They're making sure that we don't have turnover. They're making sure that we don't have vacancy. They're making sure that I don't have to do anything. that peace of mind is priceless. And so when I paid that management fee, it's baked into all the deals I do. I know ahead of time I'm going to have an 8% management fee. The deal has to work because that 8% is gone the second that rent check comes in.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
But they ensure that when I take my owner distributions every month, I get my full owner distribution.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's worth the 8%.
Perfect. Hey, everybody, listen, before we hang up, Daniel, this has been a great conversation. You and I are on the exact same wavelength here. Folks, it's www.rehabvaluator.com. Now, this is a software program that you've developed. I wonder if you've developed it like I have. I actually have a team of developers all over the globe who are putting together my CRM for my students. But yours does it crunches. Let me run through the 4 points here. Crunches correct offers and analyzes deals like a pro. You can sell your wholesale deals and build your buyers list. I got a similar feature of mine. Raise funds for your deals from private lenders and banks. That's pretty cool. And then the full project management suite for rehabbers, builders, and developers. Wow. And like, obviously, my guess, Daniel, is that this was a homegrown thing. You didn't have anything like this for your business and you needed it. And so, Mother Nature was whatever they say.
Necessity is the mother of all invention.
Exactly. And so is that how you did it?
Yeah. I mean, I literally created for myself when I was starting. It started off just to give me ability to run numbers in the deal. And then it evolved into being much more than that. We then added ability to create very simple lender presentations that we now use. We can use it to raise private money for single family fix and flips. And I use it to create banker presentations for our development deals where we're sending a 3-4 page presentation that I can create in about 30 seconds to our construction lenders and to our perm lenders. And that presentation has executive summary. It has a financial summary. It's got a simple pro forma for the deal. It's got a detailed budget. I can add pictures of projects that we've already completed for credibility. And so we have clients using it to raise money again for little residential deals and for $20 million development deals and everything in between. So there's a piece there for wholesalers. And then there's a piece there for people that are actually buying their own deals, fix and flipping, doing build to rent, doing BRRRR deals, deal analysis, funding. The project management suite has pre-built full construction budgets, scopes of work, project scheduler, accounting system in it, ability to create lender draws. The lender draw thing we rolled out a year ago because I was sick of dealing with spreadsheets. It was a nightmare. Now you can go into the software, literally click a few buttons and generate lender draw request number 1. Then you come back, 30 days later, click a few buttons, 10 seconds, professional AIA compliant lender draw request number 2. And it's just a huge time saver.
Okay, I kind of didn't ask you this, I just made an assumption, but for your deals, do you have like private lenders that you just tap on the shoulder to, help you go and buy a, plot of land, or, do you write a check? Do you go to a bank? How are you financing your deals?
I don't use private lenders. I will typically either buy the land with cash, or I will get a construction loan that also covers a portion of my land purchase.
Okay. Interesting. All right. Very cool. All right. Gosh, Daniel, thank you. So anybody, listen, you're going to get the information down in the show notes. It's a rehabvaluator.com. Check it out. It's very cool. You look at it, say, this is the only thing I need. If I'm looking to, start developing, go right to the software. And let me guess, Daniel, I bet people can reach out to you and get some questions answered if they want.
Yeah, so if you go to the site, there's a free version of the software that you can sign up for. It also links at the site to, we have a ton of content. We have education, and there's a whole section of content on our website specifically deals with ground up development, which really nobody's really teaching. I've got detailed videos there that go, I mean, deep down the rabbit hole on ground up development, and you can access that from the homepage as well. So there's a wealth of information out there. We've been putting out content for the last 14 years, and so there's quite a library out there.
Folks, he's got a great video on there that I highly recommend you check it out. It's called Multifamily Development Analysis: What to Pay for Land and Does the Deal Work? Wow. Okay. I think I know what I'm doing this afternoon. Thanks, Daniil. Thanks for taking away my golf game, Daniil. Now I got to go out and watch this video.
That's all right.
Great. Hey, thank you so much for being on the show. You've been a great guest. I really appreciate it. And let's keep in touch. I'd love to hear more from you.
Sounds good, Charles. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Daniil. Talk to you soon.